What's up, people? Vincent here. So, I lost a bet. Basically, if a certain event happened, I would have to play this deck. And this deck sucks. But I've managed to pull off a remote duel tournament win with it. I was very excited, hyped, and I'm never going to play this again. But I'd figure I'd give it a deck profile. Put it together last night. Practiced for like 3 hours, 4 hours. And who would have thought? Anyway. Marincess. So, we have 3 copies of Blue Tang. On normal summon or special summon, you can send a Marincess monster from the deck to the graveyard. For those who don't know what Marincess is, it is a cyberse type deck. It basically works as simple as link climbing to a boss monster that's unaffected by your opponent's card effects through various means. So you just sit on that boss monster, protect it from battle, protect it from card effects, and then you just swing with access code or whatever. So this is one of your main play starters. You normal summon it, you send one of your Marincess monsters that recur themselves from the grave, and then its second effect is when you link it away, and it goes to the graveyard, you get to excavate the top 3 cards of your deck and add a Marincess card from that pile. So let you find extenders, let you find your spells and traps. You have to run that 3. 3 copies of Marincess Sea Star. This is one of your main extenders. You can special summon it from your hand to a zone a Marincess Link monster points to, and if it's in your graveyard, not the turn that it's sent to the graveyard, but the turn after, you're allowed to banish it to special summon another Marincess monster from your graveyard to a zone of one of the Link monster points to. So she's an extender herself. You send her to the graveyard with Blue Tang. You link away Blue Tang, and then you get to bring it back with one of your Link monsters. We'll get to that later. Special summon her out, so now you got a link too. And then it gives you recursion options later and more bodies later down the line. 3 copies of Marincess Pascalis. This card is one of your other main starters, so on normal special summon, you can special summon another Marincess monster from your hand other than herself. And during the main phase, you can banish her from the graveyard if she wasn't sent there that turn to target a Marincess spell or trap and add it back to your hand. This is super important for one, being a big extender on normal summon, and secondly, recurring your main trap card, Marincess Wave. We'll get to that, why that's important in a second. 2 copies of Marincess Mandarin. I originally thought to play this at 1 because it's kind of situational. So if it's in your hand or a graveyard and you have 2 or more Marincess monsters on the board, you can special summon it, and then it gets banished when it leaves the field. So it's just another extender. I thought originally it would be too hard to run multiple copies because you gotta have 2 monsters on the board. But in practice, when you're going the long game, it turns out 2 is better because you just really need that extra body sometimes to go into your Link 4s. So I bumped it up to 2, and now I don't regret it. Alright, some water extenders, 3 copies of Silent Angler. If you control a water monster, you can special summon it from the hand. And if you do, for the rest of the turn, you cannot special summon monsters from your hand. So definitely want to be the last things you special summon. It can be used as a main play starter if you really, not starter, but extender if you really need to do it immediately. You try not to do it early because you do have cards special summon from the hand. So if you do this first, you'll be locked out of those other effects. But kind of mandatory to run 3 of because it's such a good extender for the deck. Another extender, 2 copies of Tenish Shithada. It's just a water monster, level 4, special summons itself via its own effect. We don't use the graveyard effect because we don't play any normal monsters, but again, just a water level 4 extender for Xyz plays and climbing up. A small frog package of 3 copies of Swamp Frog and 1 copy of Rodentonen. So this is a unique extender. You don't use it all the time because it is kind of resource intensive. You have to discard an aqua monster to a water monster to special summon it. And then when it's summoned, you get to send a frog to the graveyard. So the main thing you would do is discard, special summon Swamp Frog, send Rodentonen to the grave, use your other extenders to link climb, and then you would special back the Rodentonen by banishing Swamp Frog, so it gives you another link material. Obviously, it's good for Totally Awesome if you can manage to get double Swamp Frog in the grave and 1 in the hand, so you can make Totally Awesome easily. But it comes in handy. You know, it really gets rid of those bricky hands, it turns them into better hands. And you can discard some of the Marincess monsters, and they'll special summon themselves back from the graveyard. So the cost to discard the special summon isn't as great as you think. Since Marincess has a lot of recursion. Some hand traps, 2 Ash, 2 Draw and Lock, and 2 Effect Veiler. I don't like to run multiple hand traps because, you know, once per turn effects or, you know, having options against different matchups, but figured a nice little mix of each is pretty good. It did me well. On to the spells. 2 copies of your big important field spell. Marincess Battle Ocean. So, Marincess monsters you control gain 200 attack, and they also gain 600 more attack for each Marincess card equipped to them. Link monster equipped to them. Now, this happens because the field effect is that if you link summon a Marincess monster, you can target link monsters in the grave, up to 3 of them, and equip it to the Marincess monster, link monster that you link summoned. This is good for multiple reasons. 1, it gives it a huge attack boost. 2,000 in total if you equip 3 monsters. And 2, the second effect is if you use Crystal Heart, which is a link 2, your monster becomes unaffected by all of your opponent's card effects. So, really big body. You get anywhere between 46 to 5,400 attack monsters, and then they can't be affected by opponent's card effects. It's nuts. It makes your monster unbeatable. 3 copies of Signet Mining, just some consistency pieces. You want to see your main play starters at all times. So, again, Marincess have a really good way to float from graves, so discarding for cost isn't too punishing. 3 copies of Marincess Wave. So this is your main trap card. It's essentially impermanence, but better than that. So if you control a Marincess Link monster, you can target a monster on the field and negate its effect. The second effect is that if you have a Link 2 Link monster, you could that monster becomes unaffected by your opponent's card effects for the rest of the turn. So even if they deal with your field spell and you have a big Link monster, you negate their effect, and then your big boss monster still becomes an untargetable, untouched big beat stick. So one way or another, you're going to stick that landing. You're going to gain that monster that's going to be pretty much untouchable, and you're going to disrupt your opponent. Finally, if you have a Link 3 Marincess monster, then you can activate this from the hand, so it becomes impermanence at that point. And the best part is, it is not once per turn, so go nuts. Speaking of impermanence, 2 of them. Didn't want to run 3 for consistency reasons. Blue Tang requires you to excavate the top 3 cards of your deck and add a Marincess card. I'd rather cut down other cards in the deck for consistency's sake to make sure I have 3 wave rather than 3 impermanence, because adding a wave to your hand could be big. You really want to see that card. So if you excavate and then there's the 3rd impermanence there, you know, just because ratios, it sucks. So I cut down on this, and I don't regret it either. 2 copies of Dynamiscus. We hate Mystic Mine, so this is your only out to it. That and Toad for main negation, but if you're already in, then this is your main removal for it. Not only that, but as you know, if you activate any trap cards, or a trap card is activated, you can special summon this card from the graveyard, and it becomes a trap, level 2, which lets you make Toad plays. The cool thing is that if Marincess Blue Tang gets negated with impermanence, and you sent this for cost for like a Signet Mining or some other discard effect, this comes back, and now you have Link material. So there's just a lot of good synergies, and it's very important to play. And then finally, 2 copies of Solemn Judgment. I've seen people run 3 copies, but again, I wanted to cover my bases with other cards and change the ratios a little bit to what I've seen from my research. And you know, none of this is really my idea alone, but I appreciate all the things that I've watched to help make it. And then I just refined the ratios, and 2 Solemn Judgment is perfectly fine. Onto the extra deck, we run the 1 copy of Bahamut Shark, and that lets us summon the Toad. So basically, it's attached material, and you can special summon a level 3, rank 3 or lower water monster. So you make Bahamut Shark with your level 4 extenders, you make Totally Awesome, and then you have negates. 2 copies of Marincess Blue Slug. This is your main Link 1 that you start off with. So you would summon Blue Tang, summon this. The effect of Blue Slug allows you to add back a Marincess monster from the graveyard. If you sent Seahorse from the deck, you would add that back, because then you can special summon it from your hand to a zone Blue Slug points to. So this will be chain link 1, your blue tank will be chain link 2, you get to add back a card from deck and so on. So just your main starter. 1 copy of Sea Angel. This lets you search your field spell on summon. I only run the 1 because Marincess have a way to recur their monsters back into the deck. So if you need to search again, you have the ability to just put this back in your extra deck and then summon it again on a later turn. It doesn't really do much on its own, so 1 is fine. Another thing to point out is that I run 2 copies of the field spell because if you get it Cosmic Cycloned or just disrupted it by any means, then it sucks. A copy of Crystal Heart. Crystal Heart allows you it's essentially a towers of its own. If it's in the extra monster zone, it's unaffected by all the card effects, by your opponent's card effects. And it can protect itself at battle. So if your opponent were to battle, you can discard a... forgive me. If it's targeted for an attack, you can send a Marincess monster from your hand to the graveyard, and in that battle you don't take any damage, and this card can't be destroyed. So worst case scenario, you can sit on this and just kind of stall. And then, your Marincess wave will activate. You have a link 2, so you can negate a monster effect, and then this becomes, again, protected even more so. You gotta run it. Plus, it also lets you get further protection with the field spell. 2 copies of Marincess Coral Anemone. This is your second extender for the extra deck. When it's summoned, you target a water monster in your graveyard with 1500 or less attack. Special summon it to a zone this card points to. And then you can't special summon for the rest of the turn except for water monsters, which is fine. And then if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you get to add back a Marincess card from your graveyard. So there's your recursion, your extending. This lets you recycle Sea Angel, Marincess Wave, any of your monster extenders. And the best thing is that if it's equipped to a Link monster, and the Link monster does leave the field, this leaves the field as well, so you get another recursion. So really the heart and soul, but it's hard to run 3, so 2 is fine. 1 copy of Marbled Rock. Marbled Rock lets you add a Marincess card from your graveyard. Target a Marincess card from your graveyard added to your hand, so again, more recursion. And she has her own built-in battle protection. You can send a Marincess card from monster from your hand to the graveyard. Can't be destroyed by battle. You take no battle damage. So it protects herself and allows you to recur resources. Finally, your Marincess boss monsters. So Marincess Great Bubble Reef. She is the strongest turn 1 play, going first. So when you link summon her, obviously your field spell will allow you to equip to her. So when she's fully equipped, she becomes 4600 attack. And then during the standby phase, you can discard, you can banish 1 Marincess monster from the graveyard to draw a card. This lets you see your hand traps, your side deck cards. It also just kind of gives you that extra resource gain. And the best thing is that she gains 600 attack for every time a face-up water monster, any face-up card is banished. So she goes from 46 to 52, which is massive. Gets over Dragoon after 2 negates. It's crazy. And then her other effect is if she, once returned, you can special summon one of your banished monsters. So those banished monsters, they come right back, and then you can get more recursion. So this is definitely one that you want to make going first. Because again, if you make it with Crystal Heart, it'll be completely protected. It'll be too big to run over in most cases. Not even Access Code Talker. Like, Access Code Talker can get over this at 53. But because Access Code Talker has to banish to pop the field spell first, they banish the card, meaning she goes up by another 600. So now she's bigger than Access Code Talker. So she's a big, big, big boss monster. Really hard to deal with. And finally, Wonderheart. This is your go second extender. You could also do it going first, but most of the time you're going to go into Bubble Reef. So Wonderheart is, when she battles, she can special summon one of the Link monsters that she's equipped to. And then that equipped monster gets re-equipped to her during the end of the turn. So it lets her keep the materials provided the other monster lives. And at the same time, when she special summons, you take no battle damage or destroyed by battle. So she protects herself, gets another body on board, and that leads to just, more stall game. On top of that, if she's destroyed by battle somehow, you get to special summon a level 3 or lower Link monster, Marincess Link monster from your graveyard. So she doesn't go down easy. And that helps you OTK going turn 3. Finally, some interesting cards. Splash Mage, just a generic water extender to cyberse monsters, so easy to make. Lets you special summon a cyberse monster in defense position. So just lets you extend. And for extending, we're going into Transcode Talker. You've seen this before. Transcode Talker would activate, let you special summon a monster from grave. Choose whatever you like, because you're then going to go into Access Code Talker, and then Access Code Talker just pops things, closes out games. Just a really good piece of support, honestly, for Marincess. When the main boss monsters can't do it, he covers the legwork. And then finally, I've seen people run Abyss Dwellers and other random side deck cards. I didn't like Abyss Dweller, so I opted for this one change, and I don't regret it. Area of the Water Charmer. So you need a bit of a way to lock. When you get locked into water monsters, you need a way to link climb. And sometimes you end up with really awkward materials because the lower levels require Marincess monsters specifically. So if you don't have those and you have the Swamp Frogs, the Silent Anglers, in the later turns you can make Aria instead. And not only is it a link 2, but it points down, so your monsters in hand that can special summon to a zone a link monster points to will be working with this. But you could also target your opponent's Needle Fiber Engrave, special summon it, and now you have material for Link 4, so you can make Access Code Talker, a bigger Marincess monster. So I don't regret this addition. I think it's really smart. I think people should actually play this a lot. It really gives you that turn 3-4 push when your materials are looking a little wonky, because this deck can have really awkward hands after you've burned through your Marincess monsters. And now finally the side deck. Nothing special here really. Third copy of Impermanence, third copy of Droll, and a third copy of Judgment, just to round out 3 ofs in case you go hard or first or second. 2 copies of Alpha. I didn't see it in this set of duels, but it's just a really good card. Helps you go second really easily, helps you trade off. I wanted to test it, but I guess another day. 2 copies of Anti-Spell. You lose hard to back row because back row usually disrupts your link plays. So you want to make sure that you're clean going first, that they don't have any way to just deal with you immediately. Mystic Mine is also a pain in the butt for this deck, so I just had to make sure I had an out for it. 2 copies of Lancia for your dinosaur matchups. Didn't see it today, but whatever. 3 copies of Nibiru. You already know. And finally, 3 copies of Evenly Match. Again, hate Mystic Mine, back row, so this is just a really good blowout for Eldritch and all those other matchups. But yeah, deck was surprisingly fun, but really bad, and I hope you guys enjoyed. If you have any suggestions, comments, whatever, tell me below, and you'll never see this deck again from me. Peace.